Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Smart Investing Briefing. Today we're talking about China. Actually, the market fell quite a bit today, concerns on the global economy and so forth. So we thought today we'd bring out to light some numbers from China that may surprise you. Well, actually should surprise you. First, we're going to talk about, are China's economic numbers overstated? Well, how can this happen? This can't be for real.
I mean, the way that China does their GDP, it's quite concerning. It always seems like clockwork. It's about 6-7%. It seems like every year, just kind of chugging along. But when you look at how the data is collected, it's kind of questionable. Yep. The way they do it is they collect it from each kind of regional government, and they'll go off of what that regional government says.
And also, too, they're incentivized to say the right thing. And it said that if they don't come out with the right numbers, well, they quote-unquote said there's unpleasant consequences. And remember, they're a communist country, so unpleasant could be many, many factors there. So are these numbers real? I don't believe so.
And I mean, there was a research group at the University of Chicago. They looked at saying, based off of Premier Li, who is now, again, in that position in China, years ago, he actually had a conversation with the U.S. ambassador saying, they're kind of man-made numbers. You should look more at rail freight, bank lending, and utility use.
Right.
And that's what the research group at the University of Chicago did. And they said, we believe in 2016 the numbers were overstated by about 15%. And they think it's actually worsened since then.
Yeah, so actually those are the real numbers. You kind of put things together. Also, speaking about this, people think, oh, China this, China that. China's national debt GDP. And we concern about our GDP here, like, oh my gosh, it's so bad. We've talked about it's not. But China GDP close to 300%. I mean, that's high.
I mean, it's very high. And the crazy thing is, back in 2007, it was 146%. Fast forward to 2018, it's about 250%. But if you factor in, again, these numbers are man-made and kind of use more real economic numbers, that's how you get closer to 300%. That's a high level you got to be concerned about.
And also, too, I know China did a lot of overbuilding, building, trying to do stuff. I think now they're stuck with a lot of extra real estate, overbuilt and so forth, and this high debt. Not a good combination. And it's surprising, too, this whole trade war and so forth. But companies, U.S. companies, are actually shifting production out of China now because it makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones I like is Hasbro. They make PlayDoh, that thing little kids love to play with. That was actually manufactured overseas for many, many years. For the first time since 2004, it's actually manufactured here in the United States again. So that's quite exciting. There's a lot of other companies as well that are doing that. We got more information for you next week on numbers that are actually coming back to the United States, but we'll get to those numbers next week.
Yeah, and actually, Stanley Black & Decker, the same thing. They were doing about 25% over in China. They got it up to about 40 or 50%, and the CEO said, we'd like to see it at 80%. So companies are saying, and why are they doing this? They're doing this because the labor costs are actually rising in China. The transportation costs are expensive, so they're saying, hey, it actually makes more sense to maybe do it here. And then the other country that is going to be the next China is Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, they got a good young workforce. I mean, you talk about rising wages in China, they've actually doubled since 2010. Yeah. So it's not as feasible anymore to, produce over in China and then transport it back. It's becoming not cost effective. So Vietnam could see some big tailwinds from that, just because it's going to be a big benefit to have production shifting over there. I believe the AirPods.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
Yeah,
they're actually manufactured now in Vietnam, so could see some big things for that country moving forward.
And this all changes to the trade war, so things are not staying the same. We always talk about this. Things do change, and when something goes wrong, we'll change it. Now Vietnam's the beneficiary. The other thing too I thought was interesting is that a survey from executives said only about a third of them are going to pass on any tariff costs to the consumers. So that's huge as well. So again, not affecting the consumer here in the United States.
Yeah, it's a good thing here, because that should keep the economy moving along, because you're not going to get this big spike in prices. So that's a positive. And finally, we said, what does this mean for the trade war with China? Not everything's rosy in China. So they still need to be at that table. That's why the negotiations, I think, are still they're moving along all right.
Yeah. Summarize, don't worry about China. Don't worry about the trade wars. The U.S. is still very strong and a lot of things going on. So be sure to tune in tomorrow morning to the Smart Investing Show on AM 760 KFMB. You can listen by your podcast. You can listen by your smartphone. Many ways to do it. Have a great weekend. We'll talk more tomorrow morning on AM 760 KFMB.